You are listening to episode 4 of Break Into Code, where we educate and motivate you to pursue coding, because changing careers should be exciting, not intimidating. Hello. My name is Kristen Leake, and today I have my friend Bermon Painter here with me today. In this episode, we will discuss his experience as a hybrid developer/designer, the importance of a mentor and how to get one, and cover what a realistic mentor-mentee relationship looks like. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Huga Co-working, because this podcast and especially this amazing sound quality would not be possible without their help. So thank you so much, Huga, for selecting me as your podcast residence. I love my Huga fam. All right, now time to introduce today's guest. Bermon Painter is a hybrid designer and developer with over 18 years of experience in various industries, ranging from financial, weekly news, the auto industry, and many others. Bermon is extremely involved in my local tech community here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he is a meetup organizer for groups like Charlotte User Experience, Charlotte Front-End Developers, and Charlotte Design. On top of that, he creates tech conferences like Blend and most recently Fusion, and is a public speaker himself. Bermon, I know so many people look up to you, and I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. It's probably not because I'm tall.
So tell me, how did you get your start in coding?
My family is always kind of been involved in tech in some sense. My dad was a graphic designer / assassin in disguise. I think I'm not really sure what he does. He works for the government, and he did design things. So we had Macs around the house when I was growing up. So I started learning design. So graphic design is where I started out when I was in high school. So I had a part-time job, and I would either ditch class to go work, which was probably a bad idea, but it was a lot more enjoyable than sitting through class. Or I would leave after school. And the company that I worked for was just a small print shop in Alabama. And their business model is that they went to small local restaurants, and they would offer to give them a free menu in return of being able to sell ad space on their menus. So ads and marketing and all that good stuff. So I did all of the menus and the ads that would go on there. So I did that for a number of years until I went off to college. And then kind of in that transition, I had joined like a World of Warcraft Blizzard gaming guild.
Nice.
And they happened to have a guild website, and they promoted me to like a guild leader, which was as like a late teenager. It was kind of a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave each guild leader their own section of the site to maintain and manage. So it was up on GeoCities, and we used Dreamweaver. So that was kind of my first taste, getting to know a bit more about code, and then it kind of grew from there.
That's awesome. And today you focus a lot on user experience, correct?
I do. There's, at my current employer, Cardinal, I manage the user experience practice. So in that, we focus on typically what you would refer to as an information architect. We have designers and front-end developers that fall within the group. So I still kind of do all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But now it's more managing a team and then being involved in some of those activities with our clients.
Wow. So I'm guessing you still use all those tools even today, right?
I do. Cardinal has a hybrid model.
Okay.
So I'm billable at a client 60 or 70% of my time, and then the other percentage that's left is to grow the team, help mentor, do things like this, and just be involved in the local community.
That's awesome. And I'm sure you remember being a beginner. It's easy to get overwhelmed or get the shiny object syndrome because there's so many cool things to focus on. Do you have any tips or advice for someone who's trying not to jump around, but they're interested in UX, development, graphic design?
So I envy and worry somewhat with folks coming into it now because there is so much information out there that you can essentially teach yourself almost anything you want because everything's on the internet now. But there's also so much, it makes it harder to focus and figure out what's the most relevant information. So when I started out, I don't know, almost a couple decades ago, the only way that you really had to learn was opening up a website and viewing source and seeing what was there. So you had to kind of deconstruct everything. And it feels like people do that a little bit less now than they did in the past. Um, so if I was going to take a junior person that was like, I want to be a designer and a developer and a whatever, uh, totally encourage them to do that because there's nothing wrong with learning a whole bunch of different skills. But at a certain point, you need to focus a little bit uh, because that's how you're going to find a better job. Um, one of the best ways for folks to really understand where to focus is to be that journalist. Try a lot of things, see what they like. So my daughter is she's out at college right now, and she inherited some design skills from me and kind of from her mom's side of the family. And she also was lovingly coaxed into learning more about technology. So her big dream was to be an illustrator or an animator and kind of do things in that realm.
Hmm.
So she's been kind of playing around to figure out what she likes, what she doesn't like. And then the advice that I've been giving her is you also have to be able to afford to feed yourself and just live generally. So she's playing around, but she's also working in a development job right now, so she can afford to go to college and pay her rent and pay for her groceries. So there's a cost of living that you have to maintain somewhere in that mix.
And to stay focused, like you mentioned, um, I've noticed that a lot of people who go from coding boot camp or self-taught into getting a junior dev job, they needed guidance either through networking or mentorship. And what I've noticed is that a lot of people don't know how to find a mentor or how to properly network.
Yeah, they really don't.
And yeah, and because of that, I always encourage it. And I think oftentimes people don't know, like, do I have to ask someone for their help, or is it just a silent, you know, agreement in the relationship that's been cultivated that they're my mentor or that they will help me? Do you have any idea of how it typically goes?
Yeah. So it definitely varies per person. Um, so Charlotte as a whole has just a really great, friendly community. There are a number of folks in the community that are willing to spend time with you, get coffee with you, take a look at what you're doing, and give you some guidance. The challenge that I see is that there aren't enough folks that want to learn asking for help, and because of that they kind of meander around trying to figure out what they want to do. Uh, some of the best things that I see from folks that are wanting to learn is they come to some of the local meetups because they get to network with the community. And there are so many meetups, almost one every night, every other night here in Charlotte, ranging from JavaScript to facilitation to design to UX. And even in the front end space, you have a JavaScript meetup and an Angular meetup and an Ionic meetup and a Meteor meetup and yeah, just all kinds of different front end specific meetups where you can network with folks that are like yourself that are trying to learn and kind of get into the industry. And then you have managers and you have other peers that would be more than happy to spend some time with you. So the most important thing I think folks can do is to just ask. Because if you don't ask, you're probably not going to get anything. Nobody's going to go, oh, you're a junior person. I'm going to be your mentor. In most cases, they don't know how much experience you have. They don't know what
Yeah.
you're looking for. And it's kind of up to the person seeking help to open their mouth and go, hey, I'm trying to get involved in this particular technology, or I want to learn this thing. It looks like you do that as well. Could I buy you a coffee sometime and just bounce some ideas off of you?
That's great advice. And what I've noticed is that the community is so friendly. And just, welcomes anyone with open arms, no matter the city, from what I've learned so far.
It really is. If you ever get to travel around to visit other tech communities, Raleigh has a great one. Atlanta's is really strong. Asheville's a little bit smaller, but just a really great group of folks. And it's like that all around the U.S., no matter where you are.
And I think I actually met you at a meetup, and maybe my first meetup. I'm not sure if you
I
remember.
think so, yeah. I think it was a front-end meetup a number of months ago.
Yeah, it was over in Packard Place,
Yeah.
and I think they were discussing design. No, something design libraries.
Yeah. So we were talking about pattern libraries.
Yeah, and I had no idea what they were talking about.
And that happens, and that's fine. So you learn new technology, you learn new terminology, and you kind of learn something else that's out there that you might not know before.
Definitely. And even though at the time, I didn't know what the speaker was discussing, I met you and I met some other friendly folks.
Yeah, that's the most fun that I've had in Charlotte, I think, is being part of the community. When I first moved here years ago, there really wasn't a lot going on. I think Josh McGlynn, who had gone to Apple, he's back at Lowe's now, had started to do some of the initial co-working spaces and meetups. And then Matt Cheney, who was kind of one of the first organizers, had a web design meetup that he ran in South End. And that was the first meetup that I ever spoke at here in Charlotte, and got connected to that community. And it kind of grew from there. And Charlotte's just really blossomed over the past 6 or 7 years to where we are now.
Mm-hmm. For people who are unfamiliar about the mentorship relationship, will you explain the benefits for both people involved?
Sure. Some mentorships are a bit more structured. So AIGA, for example, has a mentorship program, and they do that at least once or twice a year, where they have folks apply to be a mentee, and then folks in the community can raise their hand and go, I want to be a mentor. And I believe they call that the mentor matchup, something like that. So they connect up mentors and mentees, and they just kind of get to know each other. The mentee can discuss career goals. They can discuss some hard skills. In their case, I want to be a better designer. And they just meet off and on over as long as they want their relationship to go. So I did that with AIGA once, and I ran into a designer here in Charlotte named Christina Law, another Christina, with a C. And she's been fantastic. She's learning, she's grown, and she's doing a lot of really great UX work in the area. Mine are a bit less structured. So I have open office hours once a week, every Friday morning from about 7 to 9:30-ish. And I have mine set up to be just 10-minute blocks of time. So folks can schedule the time online, and they can really talk about or ask whatever they want. I get a lot of folks that will sign up for that. They're looking to either get into the industry, or they're looking to change careers, or they're trying to figure out where they need to focus, or kind of what next steps are. So we'll do things like talk about their resume, try and adjust that a bit. We'll talk about career goals, and try and help them set a path of where they are now, where they want to go. And then if there are other folks in the area, or technologies or resources available to them to help them learn and grow and progress, then I try and point that out. And then I encourage them to schedule as many of those as they want every week, so we can just kind of track progress. I'm a little bit disappointed that not as many folks do follow-up mentoring chats, and I kind of wish they would, because that's kind of the point. But I'm not sure if it's because people feel like they're using up somebody else's personal time, or if they're just kind of shy. If that's the case, don't. That's why folks set up these times, so that you can let them know what you need, and they can talk to you about it.
I'm really glad you said that, because I remember when I first met you, and you suggested, let me know if you need help with anything. And the first thing I thought was, oh, I'm so junior. I don't want to bother him.
Yeah, I mean, unless somebody has a really huge ego, and they think their time is way, way too important to talk to folks, which is really not the case for most folks here in Charlotte. Like I said, most folks are enthused and happy and excited when folks reach out and go, "Hey, I'm looking for some help. You look like you might be able to help me. Let's chat sometime."
Awesome. And me personally, I believe that a relationship should have value for both parties involved. And I know, like we said, some people are too shy or don't want to use up someone's time. How can a mentee provide value or give back to their mentor?
I think my expectation is not only that they give back to me, but they give back to the community. So the mentee is going to reach a point where they know something somebody else doesn't know, and if they're involved in the community and they're learning and taking advantage of the resources available to people that are willing to help, once they know enough, then they can then become the mentor and mentor junior folks. There's a lot of benefit with folks that have been working in industry less than a year, because it's closer to them kind of knowing what they're doing now versus knowing what it felt like not knowing, and they can remember that easier. For myself, or folks who've been doing this for 15, 20 years, we kind of forget what it was like to learn new things and to just get started. And so it's not as fresh in our minds. So when a junior person kind of grows into that mentor role, it doesn't have to take 5 or 10 years. They can do that in 6 months or a year, because there are constantly new people coming into the community. They can kind of take those folks under their wing and point them in the right direction. So that's my expectation as folks grow.
Yeah, I really like that. And I was on the website you mentioned for where people sign up to for mentorship with you.
hmm
What is that website called again?
It's called officehours.io.
Okay, and I did see some other people on there as well. So you can just speak to anyone from across the country who is on there.
Yeah, exactly. So I've had folks reach out that aren't in the U.S. Because it's just a service. So anybody can be a mentee or a mentor or an advisor. I think is what they call them on the website, and it just facilitates those blocks of time. And the thing that I like is that it forces you into a 10-minute block. So the conversations are concise. You don't have to feel like you're wasting somebody's time, and it helps us both get to the point faster.
That's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
And do you have any other tips or advice that you want to share for someone on their coding journey?
Sure. In Charlotte, there are a couple of really great code schools. There's Tech Talent South. We've hired a handful of folks from their program, and then there's also the Iron Yard, and they're both doing a great job. The biggest challenge I think in Charlotte as a city is we have so many industries and organizations that are hiring people, and a lot of those positions kind of go unfulfilled, uh, because one, I think their measuring stick is a little bit higher than it needs to be for the position they're trying to hire for. And I think, unfortunately, in Charlotte, we don't do a good enough job taking these junior roles and uh, helping them get into a company. And what I would love to see happen more often, that would be like the Bank of Americas and the Wells Fargos and the companies that could support those initiatives, have something more akin to apprenticeship programs. So we can take folks that are going through Treehouse or online training or a code school and help them transition into a full-time career, because there are plenty of jobs and plenty of folks going through those programs. Uh, so if you're getting into it and trying to learn and you're frustrated that you've learned some stuff and you've coded a bit and you've either gone through a code school or some training somewhere and you're struggling getting into that first role, don't fret. It's totally frustrating and disheartening at times, because you may feel like you're sending off so many resumes, and in most cases, you're not getting anything back. You have no idea if you qualified or if you didn't qualify, why you didn't qualify. So don't be discouraged. Reach out to somebody that they can help adjust your resume. They can give you a bit of extra confidence. In our case, we're happy to run folks our interview program, our interview process, so they can kind of see what it's like and practice with our team. that there's nothing wrong with doing things like that. So just stay firm, because once you get that first job, then it gets easier.
I can definitely relate. It's a roller coaster.
It really is, and it sucks sometimes,
Yes.
because there's lots of ups and downs, and you just
An imposter.
yeah, I went through that a lot. I mean, when I was trying to move from print design to web design, I applied to so many jobs, and if I was lucky, I got turned down. For the most part, you would send off resumes and email folks, and it would just go into nothing. Which makes it really hard to gauge. Are you, like, is your resume correct? Was your cover letter correct? Did you miss something? Were you not professional sounding enough? And it's really hard to know that if you're not getting that face-to-face feedback from companies. So second best scenario is to find somebody in the community that hires, and they can help you adjust.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And where can someone contact you if they have any questions, or can they follow you somewhere on social media?
Sure. So there are pretty much no other Bermon painters in the world. So
Really?
it's really awesome for my SEO. The only other one that I know is my father, and he doesn't really do things on the internet. So you can search for Bermon online, and I'm probably like the first 20 pages in the search results. Not because I'm awesome, it's just that there aren't any other me's around,
That
or
is
other folks with my
wild.
name. Yeah, it's really easy. So I'm on Twitter and Gmail, and those are probably the two best ones you can find me at.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. You gave a lot of great advice.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to come. I think this is a great setup here, and I'm excited to see the podcast that you turn out.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet here, right?
It's great.
Well, that concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to check out the website breakintocode.com to send me questions and get more content to help you with your coding journey. Talk to you soon.